We're going to do one more question with the group, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if we have mics around, we'll get to that in a second. Here's my question, and we'll start with David. Best practices. What have you observed? When you think about Twitter, think about real-time, best practices.
I think that there are two things I think of. One is best practice individually, and then two is best practice if you're a company. I think individually, when I first got onto Twitter 2 years ago, that's coming from a traditional media background. To me, it seemed natural to say it's all about how many people follow me and what I write about. And very quickly, I came to the conclusion that I had that upside down. I had it backwards, wrong. And what I think best practice is to care mostly about who you're following and what you can learn from the people you're following. And Jack Welch, the CEO of, former CEO of General Electric, says, Twitter makes me smarter. Now, Jack Welch seems like kind of an old school kind of person. And that got me thinking, you become like your peer group, and choose your peer group well, and you can get smarter and better. So I think that's a best practice as an individual. If you're a company, I think the best practice is, we just in the other room heard a guy from Dig talk about do's and don'ts. I think best practice don't, if you're a company, is start using it like spam. Everyone in the room likes when people spam you in Twitter. Like, no one likes that. But I'll give you an example of something a restaurant did. After I ate at a restaurant, I posted something to Twitter saying how much I enjoyed the meal. It was really great. And they contacted me and thanked me for coming. And asked if I had any feedback. I thought that was like appropriate. That wasn't spam. And they're starting to form a relationship. So I'd say a best practice is use social media to form relationships with people if you're a company.
My opinion is kind of dovetails with that a little bit. The most important thing to do on Twitter is to be authentic. Don't use it as it's not a blog. So don't just post 140 character PR messages, because people really hate that. They'll unfollow you really fast for the most part, and it's a conversation, not a one-way diatribe for a Sermon on the Mount type thing. The other part of it is, and I think everyone's struggling with this right now, is figuring out how to sift through. We get hundreds of messages a day at Twitpay, and I don't even know how many the Suns get. I'm sure it's in the tens of thousands. How to sift through all of this stuff in the new real-time channel. And I think that's going to be the next thing, the next best practice that has to be defined. How do we organize and characterize this data, whether it's from Twitter, Facebook, RSS, any of the other 8 million channels that are about to be all over the place in front of us all the time.
Okay, Jeramie.
I'd say being responsive, and sifting through the replies obviously is a big challenge for us, and it's an even bigger challenge for the athletes like Shaq and celebrities who have 1 million followers. But that's what the followers, I think, really appreciate, is when they see that they actually get a reply from the athlete who answers a question or thanks them for their comment of praise or whatever. I think fans want that two-way conversation. They don't want us just broadcasting out information about the Suns. They want to hear from us and have us answer their questions and validate their fandom and show our appreciation back to them for them following us. And so it's the two-way thing, I think, is really important.
Okay, Robbie.
It's not that I would necessarily counter what's been said, but one thing that I would suggest is there's a company that I really admire. I followed on Twitter, but then they got into this habit of constantly thanking their new customers that they just signed on. And they wouldn't use, they wouldn't just send it as a mention. They would actually, start it off so everybody that was following that company would see that they just got this new customer and they were thanking them. I eventually had to unfollow them just because I don't really care that they're getting all these new customers. It's great for them, and maybe it's good for them to help establish that relationship with that one customer. But it's best to do that in a direct message to that customer or via, an @ that doesn't show up to everybody that's following you, because, it's a bit of a fine line. You want to be receptive and responsive to the people that you want to engage, but you also don't want to turn everybody else off that doesn't really care about that stuff.
Yeah. I would just say at ESPN, one quick observation I have is it's been a great feedback channel. With ESPN360.com on the weekends, the folks who run that channel are on the Twitter all the time, and they find out about problems in different feeds or people like some aspect of some game or requesting other stuff. And it's a feedback channel we didn't have before, where you get that input immediately, which allows you literally to make changes during the day. So it's been very effective for that. Real time, we are going to go to the audience, see if we have some questions. I apologize for trying to make through the lights. Do we have any questions in the audience? Anybody? Any hands, anybody? All right. Right here.
Biggest change you all see in the next 6 months, 12 months?
Question is changes you guys see in the next 6 to 12 months.
The biggest change that I see is more and more people getting on to Twitter, for example, or whatever social media network they're on. You know, it's such an easy tool to use. That's part of the brilliance of it. But there's an explosion of information. And the biggest change that I'm seeing personally, and I think we're going to, if you're not already experiencing it, I mean, you will, is that stream that's been somewhat manageable. I'm seeing some people nodding their heads. That stream that seemed like you could just kind of dip your foot in it and it's not too bad, very quickly is becoming a raging torrent of whitewater. And the biggest change I see is how do you manage that? And it's not just the volume of information, but how quickly it's coming at you.
Yeah.
And so, you know Chris Brogan? Chris Brogan tweets a lot, I've heard, and I see. And some people say, I got to stop following him because he tweets too much. And I say, the problem isn't that Chris Brogan tweets too much. The problem is that Twitter doesn't give the filtering tools that you need to filter that which you want versus that which you don't want. And over the next 6 months, I see the biggest change will be new tools to help us to filter to get to the information we want. Maybe it's the Phoenix Suns, whatever the topics are you care about, and avoid the stuff that you don't want.
I'd reiterate that, you know, I think there's a couple things. Again, you know, we're just a year into this. And so if you think there's a lot of information now, just wait the next 2 to 3 years. You know, Twitter List, you know, which is a new feature that Twitter just launched, is one of the ways to kind of help manage some of that. But I don't think we're going to be able to rely on Twitter because they've not been very fast in innovating on their platform. They've just been kind of, I don't know if happy is the right word, but trying to just make it scalable so that it can support all the users they possibly can. But we are going to start to see other platforms like Dave is developing, I'm developing, others are developing, that will take a different approach to managing that stream. So, you know, expect to see a lot of innovation over the next couple of years in this space.
Another question? Right here. Where's the mic? Okay, thank you. We actually had a question here first, and then we'll go. Okay. Google Wave and Twitter, that's the question. Who wants to take a stab at that?
I think of Wave as, you know, there's different aspects of real-time, whether it's commerce, whether it's search, and another version of real-time is real-time collaboration. And so I think one of the things that I see as potential for Google Wave is the ability for people to communicate or to collaborate in real-time. At least that's how I see it, and it's so early. I mean, think about like Twitter 2.5 years ago. I mean, people didn't really know exactly how it was going to be used, and I'd say Google Wave a little bit the same thing. We're going to see it evolve. What do you guys think?
2.5 years ago? How about a year and a half? But most people didn't know.
Yeah.
The one problem I have with Google Wave is that no one really understands what Google Wave is. And no one really understood what Twitter was two years ago either, and some people still don't understand what it is. But I really don't understand what Google Wave is. And it may be really powerful, but I haven't figured it out yet. And I've kind of played with it. I actually had a beta invite and played with it for a little while. And I haven't figured out how to use it yet. And it's just going to be another one, going back to your filtering comment, it's another, I spend an hour to 2 hours every morning. I go through my email, I go through my Twitter, I go through my RSS reader, and then I actually can start doing stuff. And figuring out a way to prioritize all of that. And Foursquare has now got me hooked on it now too. So every day it seems like I've got more stuff to deal with. And it's not, I don't think that stuff's going to go away, but we need to find a way to prioritize it. And that would be a really great startup. It's going to be a really big, hard problem to solve. And I'm not sure who, I mean, Google's in a great position to solve it if they can figure it out.